In this video, I'm going to be looking at the pluperfect tense in Latin, how to form it, easy ways to recognise it, and what is the difference between perfect and pluperfect. Hi everyone, and welcome back to bambasbat. Before we start, I want to give you this free guide to all the verb endings in Latin. It's got everything you need to help you identify all verbs from the basics right the way through to the most advanced grammar. It's got endings for every tense, voice, and mood, so it'll be really useful as you start getting familiar with these verb endings. You probably won't need it all at once, in fact you might only need one section, but one day it will all come in really handy, so go and download it now from the link in the description below. Now the pluperfect tense in Latin. My students always struggle with this one, so if you're in that group, don't worry, you're in very good company. It's actually quite straightforward when you break it down. So the pluperfect essentially does exactly what it says on the tin. It's the plus perfect tense, the more than past. I like to call it the extra past tense. This is an action that had already happened in the story before the main action you're talking about. Let's have a look in English. He had approached the city before the guards saw him. The main action here is the guards saw him. That's the core of the sentence, and the verb is in the perfect tense. However, to give me more information, there's also another verb. He had approached. This is an action that had already been completed before the main action that we're talking about took place. This is the main thing to know about the pluperfect tense. It's translated as had when you spot it in a Latin passage. And here are some more examples in English. Which ones are the pluperfect verbs? Be careful, there might be some red herrings. Pause the video here if you want time to identify them on your own, otherwise I'm going to go through them now. Number 1. We were watching the birds that had flown away. The pluperfect is had flown away. The birds had already taken flight when we watched them. You had fallen over when they came across you. They came across you is the main verb, but you were already on the floor. You had fallen is my pluperfect. After they had seen me, they ran away. They ran away is my main verb, but the extra information is basically because they had seen me. This is the action that was completed before the main verb. It's the extra past tense. For number 4, the question is, did you feel tired? But the condition is that you'd walked to town before the question was asked. So did you feel tired because you had walked into town? You had walked is my pluperfect. For number 5, after we have spoken, the people will be happy. There is no pluperfect. I have a perfect tense, we have spoken, and a future tense, will be. There's no had anything in my sentence, so no pluperfect. Number 6, I ate too much yesterday and I feel ill. Again, I've tricked you. There is no pluperfect. The verb is a perfect. I ate, and the second verb, I feel, is present. Number 7, I had eaten too much the day before and felt ill. This one does have a pluperfect. I had eaten. That's why I felt ill. So it's already happened when I felt ill. For number 8, you had seen the price before you bought it. This sounds like someone isn't happy. The subject has obviously bought something they shouldn't and they had already seen the price. So this is my pluperfect. They saw the price before buying the item. So an extra past tense is needed here. I had a house last year. I've tried to trick you again in this one, I'm afraid. There's no pluperfect tense verb here. In English, we use the word had to show a pluperfect, but it's also a verb on its own. If you want to say you own something, it's just a verb in the perfect tense. It's only when it's attached to another verb in English that it shows the pluperfect. Luckily, in Latin, they just use a different tense ending rather than compounding two verbs into one, so it's much less confusing. But for number 9, I had a house last year is just perfect tense. For number 10, I had just bought a house when the market crashed. I had bought is my pluperfect. This had already happened when the market crashed. So how did you do on those? It can be tricky to spot in English, but it's actually super easy to spot in Latin. This is because Latin uses really clear endings for the pluperfect. To form it, you use the third principal part of a Latin verb. Let's take porto as my example. The principal parts are porto, portare, portavi, portatus. So I take the perfect stem, portavi. You take off the I, which is the perfect ending, and add these endings on. So I get portaveram, portaveras, portaverat, portaveramus, portaveratis, portaverant. When translating, don't forget that had. So they mean I had carried, you had carried, he, she, it had carried, we had carried, you had carried, and they had carried. So you have to have the third principal part, the perfect stem, and you take off that I and you add on the pluperfect endings instead. So let's have a look at some examples in Latin. Sorry for the highly crowded screen here, but it has all the information that you need to translate these sentences. As usual, I have the vocab at the side, which is split into categories, and I've given the principal parts for the verbs. So be careful because some of the verbs are really irregular. So always make sure you're looking at those principal parts. The perfect stems you're looking for, that third principal part, are in bold, and I've also put the pluperfect endings at the bottom on the left to help you. So if you want to have a go at translating these yourself, pause the video here. Otherwise, I'm going to go through them now. So for number one, puellae ad forum ambulaverant. The verb is they had walked, ambulaverant. So I need to see if I have a plural noun in the nominative case that matches the they ending. I do. I have puellae, the girls. So the girls had walked, and then ad forum finishes it off, to the market, or to the forum, you can just say in English. So the girls had walked to the market. Number two, mortuum senatorem hieri conspexeram. Usually my verb is at the end in Latin, and this is the case in this sentence. Conspexeram is an irregular perfect stem, and if you look at your vocab list, you can see it comes from conspicio. So I've got I had seen, and now I need to look for what I had seen. So I'm looking for an accusative. I don't need a nominative because I'm doing it, so I'm the nominative. So I'm looking for an accusative, and in fact I have two. One is senatorem, the senator, and the other, which is sort of an adjective rather than a noun, is mortuum, means dead. Literally it comes from the verb morior, to die, and it's what's called a perfect participle. You don't even know that right now, but it means having died. So we're just going to use it as an adjective, meaning dead. So if we put it together, we get the dead senator. Finally, we have Harry left yesterday. So altogether, I had seen the dead senator yesterday. And clearly the senator died very recently if our main character only saw him yesterday. For number three, frustra ex urbe festina veratis. Again, I look for my verb first. It always tells me the most information. So festina veratis, again at the end, is you had hurried, you plural. So now I need more information. Again, I don't need a nominative because I know it's you. I'm just going to look for all my other things that might help me. Ex urbe is an ablative phrase, away from or out of the city. Frustra means in vain, so clearly the action was not successful in preventing some misfortune. If I put it all together, you had hurried from the city in vain. For number four, senex pecuniam tulerat, sed eam amissit. Now I've got two verbs here, so let's start with the first part of the sentence. It's always the easiest thing to do. Take it in order if you're struggling. Tulerat is a weird verb. Now, I'm going to take this first because it's the verb for the first half of my sentence, and the verb always tells me the most information. But tulerat doesn't really look like any of the verbs in my vocab list unless I look at the principal parts. It comes from fero, fere tulilatus, meaning bring, carry, and bear, and it's formed from the perfect stem. So this ending tells me it's the third person singular, pluperfect. So it means he had carried or he had brought. Therefore, I need a singular nominative to match. I have senex, which means the old man. What had he brought? Well, I've got pecuniam in the accusative, which means money. So I've got the old man had brought money. That's my first part. For the second part of the sentence, I start with sed, which is a connective, means but. My second verb is amissit. He or she or it lost. Now this is just a normal perfect tense because it has the isti it ending rather than the eram, eras, erat ending. I don't have another nominative, so I keep the old man as my subject for this part of the sentence as well. But I do have am, which means it, and that's an accusative. So this is what he lost. Now it means it's referring to the money from the first part of the sentence. So altogether, the old man, senex, had brought money, but he lost it. And finally, gladiatores in ludis plauseramus. The verb is plauseramus, it's pluperfect again, made from the third principal part of plaudo and the pluperfect we ending. So we had applauded. I don't need a nominative again because we are the nominative. So gladiatores must be an accusative plural. In ludis finishes it off in the games. We had applauded the gladiators in the games. And that's the pluperfect tense. Don't forget you can download a complete reference guide to Latin verbs from the link in the description below. Do go and get that now, you'll find it really useful to have to hand while you practice translating. I hope you found this video useful for understanding the pluperfect tense. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time on bambasbat.